This is Create the Next from ProCFO Partners, where every week we explore strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help today's businesses put their financial picture in context.
Welcome back to Create the Next. I'm Chris Bentliff, and I have today Sunny Sharma from ProCFO Partners. And Sunny, I'm very excited because we're talking about AI. We're talking about ChatGPT 4, just released as you and I are having this conversation, last week. But every hour, there's some crazy new advancement. Bard on Google just launched last week. We've got Copilot with Microsoft. In some ways, a year from now, this will feel quaint because this stuff will be so dominant in many workflows and in many conversations. But presently, I think a lot of folks are confused. Maybe it's a gimmick. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just noise in headlines, but I got work to do over here. Others are nervous or afraid. Is this thing going to come and steal my job? So let's talk about it from your expert perspective, where especially the CFO exists, where especially financial guidance, the financial functions. How do you think AI is going to shape our understanding coming forward, just in a broad sense, where these things are concerned?
Sure. Well, first, Chris, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. This is fun. I've never done this before. So, so looking forward to the conversation. So before we get into ChatGPT, artificial intelligence and machine learning has been around for some time. Mm-hmm. And ChatGPT is just the latest version. And it's a chat box. So when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, there are various solutions out there and various tools out there. And everyone uses it on a day-to-day basis and not even realize it. Whether it's in your phone or asking Siri for something, that's also artificial intelligence. But what ChatGPT stands for, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And as you mentioned, we're at ChatGPT 4, and it's created by a company called OpenAI, and they released it about almost 5 months ago. And to your point, Chris, we're already on the 4th version.
Right.
And so it started with ChatGPT and went to 1, 2, 3, 3.5, and now 4, all within a few months. So you can imagine by next year, as you mentioned, we're not sure what version we're going to be or what it's even going to be called, let alone all of the different formats that's out there. So very, very interesting. But it's not foreign to the accounting profession, finance and accounting profession. We've been using AI and machine learning for decades now. The tax softwares that we prepare that we use have a lot of these type of features and functionality, just not as sophisticated. And I think what is confusing, Chris, is when everybody speaks about ChatGPT, they automatically assume that's AI, but it's actually only a chat box. It's one version of AI. And what it does, which is why everyone's so intrigued, is it allows you to ask questions in kind of a normal, natural language, and you get the response in a natural language format. And I think that's one of the functionalities that everyone is quite, intrigued about. And so, in terms of accounting, it's been around for a while. It's just not been around in this format.
So does this format? How does that change things? Because as you point out, we can have a conversation and ChatGPT will remember, quote unquote, air quotes, finger quotes, where you are. So it's in context. Whereas as you pointed out with Siri, if you ask Siri to take you to a restaurant and then immediately say, no, make it Italian, Siri will have no idea what you mean. You'll need to start over the conversation. How does that generative discussion change? Because now the AI can start to learn more about me in context, which we love over at ProCFO Partners. How does that uniquely inform the perspective?
Yeah, so one of the unique things about ChatGPT is the amount of data set it can comprehend, and so it's right now the data set's in the billions. So to your point, Siri may not be sophisticated enough to maybe take it to that other version. ChatGPT 4 now continues to have data sets every single day, and it gets sophisticated every single hour of every single day as data sets come in. So let me give you an example. Like you said, for Siri, take me to a restaurant. It could, and if you give it the name, it probably will take you there. But if you say just general Italian, it may get confused. With ChatGPT, it's a little more sophisticated, and it will outline the different Italian restaurants, maybe even give you the different reviews. So I'll actually give you an accounting and tax example. In the old days, we used to be able to determine, like, for example, if you have clients that took out a PPP loan. 2 years ago, a software could tell you, here are all the clients that took out a PPP loan. But that's about the limit that it can go to. It really can't tell you what next to do. And ChatGPT has that ability. It gets quite sophisticated in terms of its answers. I'll give you another example. If you sold a car, you can simply ask ChatGPT, what is the journal entry for the sale of this car? And it'll give it to you. And prior technological software does not. It was actually quite interesting. I was reading an article, and it actually came up, and I'm actually going to pull it up because it's really, really interesting. It came up with, we actually asked ChatGPT, what are going to be some of the challenges in the accounting and tax profession? And it took about 42 seconds to respond back. And it came up with 5 answers: technological disruption, regulation, data analytics. And it actually described what needs to be done in terms of potentially solutions and direction of where accountants should be putting their efforts and their skill set at. So it's very, very interesting. So you can actually pose that question and it gives you the answer, and it's fairly accurate, believe it or not.
Which is really, I love that you pointed that out. It's a great example for folks who have not spent any time with ChatGPT. It's easy to find online. You can Google it or whatever.
Correct.
And it's a great question to ask. How will this change my industry in the next year or 20 years? Or how will AI? You can ask and you'll get some really interesting answers. And I think there's a skill set in filtering through that. Okay, this is pretty relevant to me. And this one I won't quite worry about. And this one seems a little bit like, but it does change. Tell me your thoughts on this. Our perception of our own value proposition. We're going to need to start to think differently about what we bring. And maybe not this week, but in the coming years, there's going to be a competition between AI and we human mindsets. And we might understand internally where the advantage or the difference is, but we're going to need to articulate that in new or different ways. Do you agree?
Absolutely. The analogy, whenever, and I'll take ProCFO Partners as the example. When somebody comes to us and says, what's the difference between a controller and a CFO?
Great example.
And that comes across a lot. And a controller tells you what the score is. The CFO influences the score. And a controller will tell you what you did historically. But a CFO will take the data set, interpret it, and then make decisions on it for the future. That's the sophistication that ChatGPT still does not have. It can tell you what the score is. It can go back and give you the answer, but it cannot influence the answer because it doesn't have all of the other intangible factors like human resources and people and outside factors, because it's only zeros and ones right now. So it can only give you the answer that it knows in the data set. And so if that data set does not have all of the other intangibles, it really can. So for us CFOs, we feel actually pretty good right now because most of the time we're given the data set, we're given the answer, and then we're supposed to interpret it. And so I feel that when it comes to concerns about employment and who's taking over what, the lower level, the bookkeeping, the accounting managers, the controllers, who normally day to day are creating these data sets, and giving the reports, those team members have to change their skill set to now interpreting data sets and giving us much more sophisticated information so that we can make decisions for businesses out there, if that makes sense.
It's a great point. And I was in a meeting yesterday and I said to somebody, AI might not take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI might take your job. And what I hear you saying is those skill sets will be valuable, but it will be even more valuable if you are the bookkeeper, the controller who understands how to use AI and then meld it with your own sort of unique point of view or skill set in order to further the conversation, better the understanding, create the strategy or whatever. It's not an either or. I think it's a both. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And we should not be scared of it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just like 30 years ago when spreadsheets came out. I don't know if you remember Lotus and Microsoft, and today it's Microsoft Excel, but you used to punch things in it would automatically give you the answer by summing it up. You'd have to do a little bit of programming yourself to get to that answer. So you went from manually adding the numbers to punching it into a field, and that field gives you the sum. But you had to know you had to actually have a little bit of programming language. What this is just taking it to the next level where you don't have to know certain formulas in a field. It'll just tell you. But we've been using these types of tools for decades now. It's just getting more and more sophisticated. In
some ways, and I have a daughter in high school, and in some ways, how I've seen academia generally respond has been a concern for me to the point that you're making, which a super simple illustration is, well, one time we didn't have the abacus, and then we did. One time we didn't have the calculator, and then we did. And these transformative technologies, and truly this one, maybe since the internet, we haven't seen something that is going to be, I think, this significant. But there's so many articles and points of view that are concerning, or there's a fascinating, I tricked GPT-4 to tell me a terrible story or whatever. This is early technology and it's still so, profound and advanced. But when we take a position of defense against this, we miss the opportunity to understand what it can do for us. And there certainly will be ways where, and there certainly are ethical conversations to be had and all these sorts of things. That's part of, I think, the sort of energy of this time. But as I love that you say, it's not to be feared. It's not to be, that is the wrong mindset. And if we're living in this space of, or skepticism, it's just another thing. That isn't true either. We have to be able to come to a space of, let's collaborate with this thing, not just live with it, not tolerate it, but let's figure out how to use this for us. Yes?
Yeah, it is definitely a game changer, Chris. And I think you're absolutely right. I think this particular technology is about as important as what internet was 25 plus years ago, but it has its good and its bad. Just like any new technology, look at social media. There's a lot of good that comes out of it, but there's a lot that's bad.
Great illustration.
And unfortunately, today we see more of the bad than the good, but it brought society together. It connected a lot of people. So there was a lot of good that came out of social media. And in the beginning, everybody was feared. Then everybody adapted it. And now, unfortunately, there's a good side and a bad side. That's what's going to happen with AI, machine learning, and eventually robotics and such. You're going to have some great things that come out of it. And there's some things we're just going to have to make sure we have controls in place to ensure that it doesn't, it's not a runaway train.
Let me broadly, as we kind of reach the end of our conversation, put you on the spot just a little bit. I love what you just shared. We've got things coming. We said GPT-4, GPT-22 can be living in a robot that, I don't know. We're on the cusp of some exciting things. What advice or guidance do you have for especially the smaller mid-market organization and company out there? There's a larger discussion to be had around. Carlos Sava and I talked last week about business velocity, about being able to move with agility. Hale and I talk about this a lot. Nelson and I talk about this a lot. Being able to move and respond, not react, but respond with a strategic sensibility. What should I be doing ChatGPT 4 is an indicator of great change, technological change that we are on really a unique verge of. What do I need to be doing to make sure that my mind and my eyes are open in this time to be able to understand and take advantage of these things?
So what I'm doing personally is I just want to kind of just understand the environment. So I'm on a wait list to join ChatGPT 4. And I would encourage people to read about it, to at least learn and understand what its functionality and features are. And in terms of small and middle size, we don't have to be on the bleeding edge of technology. We just need to understand that this exists, and eventually, how is it? Because most folks, this is fairly new, so it's going to be fairly expensive. A lot of the companies that are going to come out there, you probably don't need that type of sophistication and that type of system. But for the small and middle market businesses, I would definitely recommend that they at least learn about it, understand the functionality, know what it's about, and at least keep up with some of the news and the information that's coming out there. But I don't think you need to implement anything specific today, tomorrow, or even next year. But also be aware that a lot of what we do already has AI and machine learning on our day-to-day. We just probably don't even know because we don't put the attention to it. So this is just another functionality, another feature. But if you just look around and look at and evaluate your daily tasks, you're probably touching AI many times a day and not even aware.
A great point of view, a great perspective, such an interesting time and conversation, Sonny. I hope you come back and we can continue this discussion as this escalates and changes and evolves, because it's just going to continue to bring new things to the conversation. And I like that we're creating an outlet and a channel to sort of help discuss that. And I think for me, if I had one takeaway that I hope listeners and watchers and leaders out there underline, it's what Sonny kind of closed with, which was learn. Just go get involved. Just don't
play around with
need
it.
to do something tomorrow, but learn. Just get involved so that you understand the conversation from a more intimate and involved point of view, and not just passively. Sonny, it's been so good to be with you today. Thank you so much for your generosity of your expertise and your thoughtfulness. Really appreciate it.
Look forward to future calls. Thank you, Chris. This was fun.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Visit ProCFOPartners.com for more strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help you put your business's financial picture in context.